How's it going, everybody? I've got some more Magic for you today with a Rakdos Mayhem deck. Most people have played Mayhem now since the pre-release up to now. Lots of really fun and interesting cards got added for this archetype with the new Through the Omenpaths sets, or set. So I've got here what is, in my opinion, the best combination of cards that I have found for making Mayhem work. Most people have been playing it in Grixis. Very few have played it in Rakdos, other than I think Malone recently did a video for it. And I really liked his video, but I feel like my approach here may be the most solid version of it that or it's definitely the most functional version of it that I've made. So what we've got here that really makes this pop off more than other people's, obviously we've got the Marauding Mako. With as much discard and draw as we're doing, this card gets really big. So it's a really fantastic turn one play that you really want to get every single time. I also do have included Tiny Bones the Pickpocket as a one-of because it's a fun interaction whenever it becomes available in 3 Cecil Dark Knight. Now, Cecil doesn't get any payoff from the discard draw effects or Mayhem, but it's a really strong 1-drop, and I'm running Alesha, who laughs at fate. So having these 1-drops that are going to pretty likely get killed early on is really nice for her because she gets to bring them back. Another card that plays off of these graveyard 1-drops is Desecrix's Gift of Servitude. This card brings back a creature, forces it to attack if it's able, and then if it's not blocked and hits and actually deals damage to the player, you have to sacrifice it after the combat step. So, in my opinion, some of the strongest things that you can utilize with Desecrix are creatures with Death Touch, because they're much less likely to be blocked. And if you need to use them as a blocker, since they're going to die anyway, you get more value out of them. I'm not using it in this deck, but one of my absolute favorite combinations with Desecrix is the Unstoppable Slasher, because it's going to attack in. If it gets blocked, then it doesn't deal damage to the player and doesn't die. If it does hit, then it takes half of their life away, and then when it dies, it still comes back to the battlefield tapped with that counter on it, the stun counter on it, so you get a more permanent creature from Desecrix. Now, the reason I haven't included it in this deck is you really want this to be a low CMC cost deck because you're going to be wanting to multi-spell. Getting to use Mayhem means that you're going to be discarding cards and playing them, meaning that you're oftentimes going to be doing something like a Bitter Triumph or a Fear of Missing Out, meaning you've already spent 2 mana to discard the card. Now, all of your payoffs for that are going to be things like Ruzik, or Desecrix, or Kivney. Or, something else if you have some means. But that means you're already going to be at a deficit of 2 mana, usually, before you even get to play whatever you discarded. So, you want to keep the cost of cards as low as possible, in my opinion. Meaning that a bunch of 3-drops, with that being like the bulk of the deck, with like Unstoppable Slashers or Screaming Nemesis, things like that, is going to be a hindrance in the long term. Not to mention, anything that is 3-drop or more, you're going to have to actually be able to connect and attack with Alesha, getting that 1/1 counter on her before she would be able to bring back things like Desecrix or Ruzik from the graveyard. So with everything being 2 cost or lower, that means she's going to have a higher likelihood of being able to hit her reanimation targets as soon as she's played, rather than having to attack first. Now, what I was saying before, the 2 cards, in my opinion, that make this version of the deck really pop off is Quint's Insight, because this is going to generate non-combat damage for you, so it's not going to rely entirely on you dealing damage with your creatures or connecting. Meaning that it's really helpful. Not to mention, you get this out on the field, and it is a free discard, so you're not going to need to pay in mana for that discard like you would for Fear of Missing Out or Bitter Triumph. This is going to give you a free discard at the beginning of your turn, and it happens after draw, which is really fantastic as well, because you get to draw what you are going to for turn, then decide what you're going to discard, and then since it didn't cost you anything on that turn to do the discard, you get to have all of your mana available for your plays for that turn. And then the other one is Inti, Essential of the Sun. Inti is a very popular Rakdos card that gives you so much value. Whenever you attack for turn, you get to put a 1/1 counter on one of the attacking creatures. It gains trample, so you're able to get trample damage in, which is really fantastic when paired with something like Marauding Mako that's been building 1/1 counters. It puts a 1/1 counter on that creature, and since it discards a card when it does it, it will give 2 counters if you select one Marauding Mako, something along those lines. And then it also, anytime you discard a card for any reason, lets you exile the top card of your library, and you can play that card until the next end step. Or until your next end step, which matters because if you have to discard something on your opponent's turn for, say, a Bitter Triumph, that card remains playable for you until your next end step. But being able to gain cards in exile that you can play until the end of your turn, after discarding your cards, is really helpful because it basically lets you not feel as bad about having discarded so many cards. It lets you basically have full usage of cards despite having discarded and discarded and discarded to get the triggers. Ruzik also is a discard enabler. I'm only running it as a 2-of because, again, it is a 3 cost. It does have Mayhem for 3 as well, so not a discounted cost for that, which is unfortunate. It does create treasure tokens whenever its ability triggers for you, so it helps generate mana for you to continue playing those cards that you're getting from Inti, or that you're getting when you discard draw. The big downside for Ruzik is that it forces you to discard prior to drawing a card on your turn. So if you have only one card in your hand, you have to discard it. And you don't get to draw a card first and decide what card you want to discard. So that's a really big negative in this for this card, in my opinion. But this discard effect is a free ability at the beginning of your turn, so you don't have to pay into it, and you still keep your mana open for plays after. The discard triggers for Ruzik and Quince are both forced discard effects. You have to do it. There is no you may discard or draw, things like that. So keep that in mind. Like I said, if you only have one card in hand, this will force you to discard it. So try and keep like a land in hand, something like that you don't mind discarding if the other card's something that you want to play. Quince also will force you to discard, so if for whatever reason you only get, like, you have no cards in hand, then you draw one, you have to discard that card and draw a new one. Sometimes that doesn't really matter, or you don't mind. A lot of those cards are going to have Mayhem, things like that. So not a big deal, but it is a negative or a drawback to those cards, in my opinion. Now, the reason I'm not running Monument to Endurance in this deck, another really good way to get non-combat damage, is again because it's a 3-cost card. It takes some time to set up, it's a little bit slow, and you're going to be juggling the fact that you want to draw cards, create treasure tokens, and deal that non-combat damage. I think Inti does a much better job by giving you trample when you can get some really big creatures, get some 1/1 counters on creatures. This is a better option than Quince Insight than Monument to Endurance, in my opinion. This is the fastest and most aggressive version of this deck that I've put together, and I do consistently get wins with it, so that's why I wanted this to be the version of the deck that I showcase. Now, land for Rakdos is absolutely atrocious, unfortunately, so we're running things like Fabled Passage to help us fetch lands, which is good. It thins out the deck a little bit and gets the land out of your way for draws. We've also got Multiversal Passage and Starting Town. Now, you could also use the Nightclub card that has blue, black, and red, but it enters tapped, and if you manage to play it tapped on discard, then it hurts you for 2 life, and we're already taking a lot of damage from Multiversal Passage and Starting Town, and a tap land just isn't ideal. I've got a few Restless Vents in here because it becomes a creature, and it also enables discard. But in the end, this card enters tapped as well, so we want as little of that as possible. Sideboard is pretty general here. We've got some Duress for more control matchups, Tragic Trajectory, Abrade, and Torch the Tower for more specific types of removal that might be useful for certain matchups. Tragic Trajectory is okay, but we're not doing a lot of things that are going to remove things from the battlefield. Like we're not sacrificing creatures or anything like that, so it's a little bit more, let's see, less effective than something like Knife Trick in this deck. And then Torch the Tower is similar. It'll deal 2 damage, but we don't have a ton of enchantments or things that we want to be sacrificing. We do have Fear of Missing Out and Quinn's Insight, so you can do it if you absolutely need to, but it's just not my preferred type of removal. It's better. These are better if you know that your opponent's going to be playing a lot of creatures that are going to have 2 toughness or less. So, and then Abrade obviously is more here primarily so that you can deal with things like Ghost Vacuum, especially if you do play this in best of 3, because Ghost Vacuum is going to try and combat your Desecrix and Alicia. Or, you know, if you play up against the Vivi Cauldron deck, you want to deal with the Cauldron, things like that. And then we have a few nice things here like Preacher of the Schism and Quarry Revenant. Quarry Revenant can really help by giving you that lifelink enabler in this deck, and you can get some really big creatures between Alesha and Marauding Mako. So it can be nice being able to put the 1/1 counters on them particularly. Preacher's really nice if you need to generate 1/1 blockers or draw extra cards. Absolutely could replace any of these for the Unstoppable Slasher since they do synergize so well with Desecrix. But anyway, I've definitely been rambling and explaining this deck enough. I'm going to go ahead and get into games, try going for 3 wins like I normally do in best of 1. Hopefully you guys enjoy this. Like I said, this is my favorite version of Mayhem so far, and I wanted to give you guys something a little more consistent than what I've been seeing other content creators do. Alright, going first, which is nice, and we have good land here and a Marauding Mako, so I'm going to go ahead and keep. We're a little light on things to do other than the Mako or after the Mako, but I think this is still good enough because we can start with the Multiversal Passage, get down the Mako, and then hold up Bitter Triumph. Most people are going to want to try and get rid of Mako right away because it is a very annoying thing to deal with. For now, like I said, I'm just going to hold up the Bitter Triumph, maybe even potentially discarding a land with it if we need to. No creatures from our opponent yet. We've got another Mako, so I'm going to go Vents here, get another Mako down so that if they decide to just kill our first one, it's not that big a deal. Okay. Nothing from our opponent yet. They're probably playing some kind of mono-black deck that is just trying to get rid of our creatures, but they don't like the Mako. Okay. No, they're actually a 3-color deck with Sultai. Interesting. We'll go ahead and fetch maybe a mountain here. I'm not really sure. Yeah, that's fine. Thin those out just a bit. We'll attack in. We're honestly hoping here that they try and get rid of one of the Makos, because I assume they're holding up removal. We're going to play Ruzik now, but they're probably going to kill it. I was hoping they'd jump the gun and shoot one of our Makos. No removal on the Ruzik is pretty surprising for me. No creatures from our opponent yet. We're actually playing a lot of colors, surprisingly. Let's go ahead and discard Desecrix because we're going to play it. Rose our Makos. I'm pretty okay discarding a Kivney here to get to play it. I don't think we're going to discard for its ability, though. It's hard to say, because we're going to lose... Yeah, we're going to lose this anyway to Ruzik, so I'm going to go ahead and discard it. Because that's going to grow our Makos, and like I said, we're going to lose it to Ruzik anyway. No creatures in our graveyard, unfortunately. But we got some really good damage pushed in there. We only need 3 more. And even if they kill all of our creatures with a board wipe now, we still have the Restless Fence. Okay, so that went really well. Ordered pretty good. We didn't get to revive anything with Desecrix, but we really pushed through a significant amount of damage very quickly with our deck here. I don't know what they were doing, if they were just trying to wait on removal, but like I said, I wanted to kind of front load as much damage as I possibly could. That Bitter Triumph discard, I didn't love that because we had to lose our removal, but if Ruzik didn't die, we were going to have to discard Bitter Triumph at the beginning of turn before draws anyway, so it was better to go ahead and discard it now and get the extra 1/1 counters on the Makos and the Kivni. And then, like I said, even if they went for a board wipe, we still had Restless Fence, which wouldn't exactly kill them, but it would get them down to 1 life, and we have the potential to get through that just by drawing like a Quince Insight or something like that. So, not bad. I don't know exactly what our opponent was doing. They seemed just a bit too slow. Maybe they were trying to play a spider deck that isn't optimized. Pretty interesting there, but let's go ahead and see if we can get a good game 2. Alright, unfortunately our opponent does get to go first, but I think our hand here is pretty okay. It's usable at least. Hard to say what's best here. I actually think we need to go with one of these Fabled Passage so that we can do a little bit more going forward with our land. Being stuck with 2 Fabled Passage early on is really obnoxious. We do have Knife Trick available now, though, which isn't bad. What we can actually do is go here, go black, pay 2, Knife Trick, discarding a card, going here, discard a Kivni. Now we can play the Kivni. I think I want to go ahead and discard the other one because we're not likely to use it right away. Let's go with Restless here. Bitter Triumph, discarding the Multiversal Passage. We can attack in with Kivni, which it had Menace. We could have attacked in either way, but I don't want them to keep keep one of those cards to begin with. Now Sephiroth had nothing to sacrifice, which is pretty good for us. Let's go ahead and get some red going. I would like to get rid of this land, but let's go ahead and go with Cecil here so we have a good blocker for Sephiroth. Looks like they have some form of removal. If I was them, it's hard to say. Kivni's going to be annoying because it keeps having Menace and attacking forward. Cecil's their direct problem at the moment because it can block Sephiroth and kill him. Waiting to see what the opponent decides on now. Personally, I'd probably at least try to play a creature that I could use for double blocking Kivni. Because they're kind of in a bit of a dangerous situation right now. I'd like to be able to get rid of the Sephiroth, but even if I can't, it's not really that big a deal. Alright, so it looks like our opponent's just roping us out here. There probably was a little bit of a cut there for that reason. Go ahead and play it out, see what happens next. Alright, opponent's still roping, so I'm sorry for the cuts. In this case, I think it's best just to attack with our menace creatures since they can't be blocked. We'll go ahead and ditch the swamp since we have the Verge. Quint's Insight's very good, actually. Can't play it this turn, though. We'll see if the opponent even attempts to play more, if they just rope us to a loss here. Alright, and as you can see, our opponent did rope us to the end there, unfortunately. But we did get a win. Not the most ideal, but you can see how just having the knife tricks, the proper amount of removal, you can get rid of a lot of the early annoyances from your opponent and get a good win. We did have Quint's Insight here, so we were going to be able to get it down, maybe start discarding things soon for a little extra non-combat damage. We were using Cecil to keep Sephiroth in check on our end and had Menace attackers. Wasn't too bad. Not the best match ever, unfortunately, for Game 2, but, I mean, it was something. This is a strong deck if they decide to actually play instead of just being sore losers. I think it's worth noting, too, I'm not in Ranked, I'm playing in the play queue. People deciding to be babies and just rope you out is way too prominent, especially in a game mode where there's nothing to lose. So, yeah, but let's see if we can get a little bit better Game 3. Alright, unfortunately the opponent gets to go first, but we've actually got a really good looking opening hand here, so I will keep. Looks like they may also be doing a form of Mayhem deck. Let's see who comes out on top. Quint's Insight from the opponent as well. Okay, creature from our opponent. And a land. Stalactite Stalker, interesting. Stalker got a little bit bigger, it's not too bad. Let's get rid of the Mako. I don't think we're going to get another one out quickly enough for it to matter. Go ahead and play a land. Part of me wants to just kill everything they have. Let's go ahead and, I guess, get a swamp out. Let's leave the Stalker for now, I guess. We're going to discard the Kivney with Knife Trick. Play the Kivney, get another discard, do 10 of damage. Let's get rid of one of the fear of missing out here. Attack with our Mako. Stalactite Stalker is actually a really good use for this deck because you're going to constantly be getting things into the graveyard. I only have one of them. I use it a lot in Brawl, but I don't have like a playset of them. So that's why I don't use more of it. But it's actually a really strong opening play. Almost as good as, well, probably at least as good, if not better than the Mako. Ruzik's a good play coming down. Okay, let's get rid of Kivney, because I'm probably not going to be playing it. I think in this case, I really want to go Knife Trick, discarding the land so that I can hit the Stalker. Sadly, we have nothing else to discard, but we can draw one more card by going here. Got another Knife Trick, which is pretty nice. And now we can attack with no worry of Ruzik killing our Mako. And our opponent's at 4. They were using Inti, so I commend them for that. I think Inti's really important in this deck. Knife Trick on our fear of missing out, but he can't attack, and he just loses, yeah. So, mine still appears to be the better version, probably. This is an okay card. You get to equip for free by discarding a card, so it acts as a discard enabler for you, but it's also kind of just a dead card on board if you're not attacking. I guess I did, like, so if you have the Stalactite Stalker, that's a really good option of a card to go with instead of Mako. I really like the Mako personally because it's also got cycling on it, so it can act as a generator for discard in that way for itself as well. We did have another Knife Trick, but that doesn't hit Ruzik, so we were just kind of holding it, probably going to discard it on this turn. He did good getting rid of my fear of missing out, because I was going to be able to attack twice with something that turn. And he wasn't necessarily exactly dead yet. I was going to have to discard something to Quince, and then if I got something that I could play from exile with it, then that would deal 1 damage and I could just attack with Kivney. But even if not, then I was going to attack with Mako, and then he was going to lose his creature because he'd have to block it or die. But yeah, so that was the end here for my Rakdos Mayhem deck. That was a little bit better last match. It was a mirror match, and you can kind of see how my version does in comparison. I really think this is like the dialed-in version of Rakdos Mayhem, in my opinion. It's pretty consistent. You do have some poor matchups, obviously. A lot of the meta decks still beat it. I think we're pretty strong against mono-green landfall because of so much removal that I've included. We're weak against any kind of the artifact deck running Simulacrum Synthesizer, because it's just, we just don't have answers for it. We have a Braid in the sideboard, but that's honestly not even enough. And you could run into some trouble if you're up against like the new Reanimator decks. We do have Ghost Vacuum in sideboard, but even then you could also consider running some of the strategic betrayal instead of some of the other things that I have in sideboard, because Reanimator is so huge right now. You've got Yuna. Any of the Yuna decks have a lot of reanimations with enchantments. You've got Arden in like 3 different types of decks now, because the Kavero is so strong in any kind of a black-blue deck. So I personally already have a Dimir, Grixis, and Sultai Reanimator deck that I'm going to be showcasing over time that utilizes Kavero. And then you also have Virilix, or Anti-Venom, in white that is Reanimator. So you can do Orzhov or Mono White with it and have a really strong deck also. So Reanimator is really huge right now in the meta, so it's something to definitely consider. But anyway, that'll be it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and thank you for joining me.